Hey, we're live.
All right. Welcome to the virtual brown bag meeting. Uh, I'm not ready to start talking.
All right, I'll do it. I'll
Uh,
do it then. Song dance. Hey.
you want to do it? Do
Yeah,
it.
sure. So every week we get together, 12:30 to 1:30 Central Time, Daylight Savings Time, Central Daylight Savings Time. See, UTC would solve all these problems. Just
You
you know,
just say central.
yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I guess. But
Yeah.
then I guess there's the Brazil, non-Brazil time. Um, so yeah, we get together for an hour and we talk shop. We share blog posts we've written, read news. We take a look at new libraries. We share tips and tricks from everything from technical problems to business-related issues to just being a better developer. The origin of this came from after doing Open Spaces conference. We really liked the atmosphere and the ability to share openly anything that was coming to mind. And there's a lot of people there that they really like talking about stuff, but they don't have the same atmosphere at work, or they might be a freelancer and they work from home. So this is a forum for them to come join and share and learn. And that's what we've been doing. We started way back in the day, then took a little break for a few years, and we brought it back. And we talk about all sorts of technologies, but and really we can talk about anything people are interested in. But lately, I guess, has been a lot more JavaScript, and hopefully now we get some more C# related stuff. TypeScript should be coming up. We've talked about React Native. We've talked about Aurelia. We've talked about Elixir script. I mean, it's been good. I mean, we cover a whole range of topics, and yeah, so that's the intro.
Keep in mind that everything we
Oh yeah,
record, yeah, do that.
everything we record, yeah, everything is recorded and streamed to YouTube. So if you want to share your Amazon keys with the world, please join, share your screen, and then we'll have your Amazon keys or everything. But otherwise, please be careful what you share on your screen because the world will see it. So Joe, that means your manifesto you should keep quiet and on the down low.
Right.
Note to self.
Cool.
All right.
Well, let's get started then. I know we had a couple things that we were talking about in the Slack earlier we could discuss.
So I
We
think
were gonna,
virtualbrownbag.com. You can find our Slack channel. That's where you get the link to join us in the. You can check a look at meeting.virtualbrownbag.com to watch. But of course, we'd like more people to participate and talk because that's part. This is why we do it.
yep. So I guess you want to get started by talking about freelancing.
Yeah, Joe, do you want to talk about stuff we were talking about, I guess, last week, and now you
Yeah.
can share with the world?
Yeah. I've got just a couple of slides here that I threw together. How do I share my screen?
Left hand side, green
Left hand
background,
side.
the arrow.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. All right. I'm not going to go into presentation mode or anything. I just is really just to keep me on track more than anything. But basically, what we were talking about the other day was this company that I'm using called iProfessional, and it's the company that I use in order to maintain my clients, get my invoicing done, get my contracts done, all that kind of stuff. And so what they are is an employer of record service. And most employer of record services are people like, dadgum, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they're the people who have contractors that go into clients and say, hey, we're looking to staff a bunch of people, and we heard you've got a big project coming up. Would you like to hire some of our contractors? iProfessional is a little bit different. You go in and you get your own clients. They assume that you're a skilled consultant and that you're networking and that you've got a network of clients that you're interested in working with. And so they're not going to go out there and sell you. You're selling yourself. But what they do is they go in and review your contract for you, and your customer signs a contract with iProfessional. And iProfessional does all of the invoicing and does all of the billing and handles all of the collections. And then you are a W-2 employee of iProfessional, and they pay you on a salary basis, which works out really nice because then, since you're a W-2 employee, it makes it easier for you to get things like car loans, house loans, things like that. It makes your taxes easier at the end of the year. Your payroll, you can set it up, and this is the mistake I made at the very beginning. You can set it up where every time you get a check in from your client, iProfessional distributes the entire check to you. Or about 6 months to a year ago, I set it up to where every time iProfessional gets a check in from the client, they put it into my business account, and then I get a set distribution every week. And so I'm effectively now a salary employee of myself. And I'm actually sitting there and watching my business account grow, and so I can afford to take a vacation. And if I take a vacation, I know I can take a couple of weeks a year or more, and I'm not going to go broke because I've still got this backlog of money in my business account. And it gives me a little bit of peace of mind there. In fact, back in, I guess it was March, I went to a funeral, and then right after the funeral, I was checked into the hospital, and then after the hospital, I was sick for a week, recovering. So I had 3 weeks of sick time, basically, and never missed a paycheck because iProfessional had enough money in my backlog that I have not yet missed a paycheck, and I've managed to still build up the recovered money there.
So is it? You said it gets transferred into your account, but or is it transferred into iProfessional?
It's transferred into iProfessional's account, but it's a business unit that you control.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I was concerned about that. Okay.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. It's iProfessional's account, but it's a business unit that you control.
Co-op / global.
What's that?
Oh, sorry.
Oh. So the big thing there is, for me, the peace of mind of knowing that I'm getting that weekly disbursement, but it's not the full check unless I do something really stupid, like tell them to send me the full amount. I did that once, and that was no good.
There are other reasons to do that. Well, I guess if you're W-2, that doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, the reason I did it back in December was I knew I was going to be taking some vacation time, and I wanted the full amount so I could pay some bills ahead of time. And then that left me in January with no money in the account.
So what about insurance? Oh, there you go. It's on the screen. Go for it.
So there are some benefits. They do have an insurance plan. We're going to talk about that in the downsides. Their insurance plan sucks. But if you go out and get your own private insurance, they'll handle your pre-tax disbursement, basically reimbursing you for the private insurance. So for me, I went out and got my own private insurance. Worked out really well. They send me a little bit extra every month, and that covers that. There's also a corporate Amex card you can get that's also going to be talked about in the downsides because that bit me in the butt later. They handle your expense tracking, and so if you go out and buy a computer or go out and buy, I don't know, printer paper, whatever, you manage all of that in an application called Concur. And at the end of the month, you submit your Concur report, and they reimburse you out of your business account. And all of that is handled pre-tax, or as much of it as can be handled pre-tax. Each piece of the pie gets a certain amount of pre-taxable. I don't know. I'm not an accountant. I don't care. It's handled for me. And then there is a retirement account, and then there's other benefits here. No, those are the two benefits pages. So there's a retirement account, dental insurance, 401k, life insurance. There's all those kinds of things that you would normally expect to get with a big company. It's just you're paying for it. So you pick and choose going in what it is you're going to pick up as your benefits. So what are the downsides? The medical insurance that they provide sucks. So you got to go out and find your own, basically. The corporate Amex card is kind of awesome because it ties directly into Concur, and so it makes it easy to track your expenses. But it kind of sucks because it has no limit, and it has to be paid off every month, and you can quickly get into a cycle of spending and paying it off and running out of money. And so I ended up saying I'm not using that anymore, and I'm off of that. Some of the benefits have to be selected immediately as soon as you join the company, and I believe that's not just with iProfessional. I think that's like just a thing, like life insurance, long-term disability. I think once you join a company, you kind of have to decide right then and there whether you're doing those things or not.
You usually have a yearly enrollments or something like that.
Well, your yearly is for your medical and dental.
Mm-hmm.
And then life insurance and long-term disability apparently is. I asked my insurance agent here about that, and she was like, "Yeah, that's kind of a thing. Is once you've declined it, you don't get another chance." So if you're going to take the long-term disability and life insurance, which I should have taken and I didn't, and now I can't. So if you're going to take them, you should do them immediately. The retirement account can get expensive. I figured I would contribute 5% of my income to the retirement account, but what happens is you can contribute 5%. Then in a normal company, if you're a full-time employee, you contribute 5%, company contributes 5%. So that means you're contributing 10% because you are the company, right? Then there's something called Safe Harbor that you're also contributing to, which is another 5%. So instead of contributing 5% of your income, you're contributing 15%.
What is Safe Harbor?
It's basically an anti-Enron thing. You're contributing to a separate savings umbrella where if your entire pension crashes, at least you'll have like a third of what your pension would have been. At least that's my understanding of it. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't really get it completely, but that's my understanding of how that works.
Right.
Okay. Downside. Overall expense. They're not super expensive if you're using all of the benefits. I find myself mainly using them for invoicing and contracting. I could probably do that myself. If you're not going to go with the corporate Amex, and you're not going to go with their medical insurance, and you're not going to go with dental and long-term disability and life insurance and all those kinds of things, it may be more expensive than it's really worth. I don't remember the exact numbers that I calculated earlier this year, but it came out to roughly 1.5 times what a good accountant would cost me. So if you're not going to use the benefits they offer, a good accountant is probably a better option. What ended up being the swing vote for me was their contract enforcement. I had a customer probably 6 months into my engagement with iProfessional that tried to stiff me. He wasn't stiffing me for much. It was maybe $500, but his contract was with iProfessional. They called him up and said, "Look, we've got lawyers and your contract is with us, and we're going to collect." And he paid. So they will collect their money, which means you eventually get paid. And, I've been in the position of being an independent contractor and being stiffed, and I'm not interested in being there again. So for me, that's kind of the swing vote.
I think that is a
staying
major
there.
swing vote, at least for me, for that type of stuff. I need double check and things, but I'm kind of interested in trying a couple of gigs this way if I stay doing freelance work, because that is a big deal. And even then, with you're talking about the accountant stuff too, that but then it's not just finding the right accountant to do that; it's the time you have to spend and all the other stuff. And it seems like, really, it depends on what you want at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
I like coding more than I like running a freelance business.
Yeah.
So the more stuff I can code, the less stuff to do that. And all the things that they're providing there make a lot of sense. But I do agree, like, you wish the benefits were a little bit better. And there's stuff that you don't really think about. Because you've hit on some stuff that lightly touch, but those people are like, I'm interested in freelance. A lot of times they're trying to budget, and I'm like, you're not considering all the costs, which is the retirement, then vacation and sick days and all this stuff, because then all they see is they do the math. And the other part to me, I'm always like, it's hard billing 30, 40 hours a week unless like it's, other things happen, because like you're running a business, you're managing lots of other stuff. When you're full-time work, you go there and, if you go out to lunch with your friends or you're sitting there talking at a water cooler or doing whatever, like that's not billable time as a freelance. So like
Yeah.
you gotta like there's a lot of times you're gonna be cutting that down, and then you gotta be looking for other work and all that stuff. So some of the stuff simplifies it, and taxes are crazy. Yeah, it is not fun to pay taxes as freelance.
Yeah, America is not friendly to independent contractors.
No,
It's not an entrepreneur-friendly world, despite all the hype.
Come on. But again, you shouldn't be, no one should be an independent contractor when they're freelancing. Everyone should set up their own corporation and
right. But it's
that's
even
a lot better that way.
right. But I think I'll put a little asterisk on there. You're right, setting up LLC and then sometimes going S corp. But considering how much, ignoring the LLC is pretty easy to set up, but there's still some complexity inside. But S corp is definitely a lot more. There's more complexity, but considering how complex the road you have to navigate just so that you are not paying a ridiculous amount of taxes,
Yeah.
I think that's more of the battle. Because at the end, you can get close to where you were, but it's like the amount of effort you have to put into it versus if you're W-2 just filling it out and going board.
Now, I will say the one caveat I had, I don't know if caveat's the right word, the one downside or catch or gotcha, I have spent a lot of time on my expense reports with them.
Okay.
And so this year, I decided I'm going to try something a little different, and I don't know how it's going to work out. I'll report after tax day of 2017, I guess. But I'm not filing expense reports this year. They're reimbursing me for medical insurance, but I'm not messing with the expense reports this year. I think what brought it to a head for me was I bought a nice set of a headset, right, the one that I'm wearing right now, and the name on the receipt was Logitech Gaming Headset, and it got kicked back. They said, well, we're not reimbursing a gaming headset.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't understand. I'm on calls all day long. This is a comfortable headset. This is for work. And they said, well, it says gaming headset. It was 3 months before I got them to reimburse it.
Yeah.
And that was 3 months of writing letters and documenting receipts and documenting phone calls. For me, it's a hell of a lot easier just to put it in Quicken, mark it as a taxable item or tax deductible item, and do the TurboTax in Quicken at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And
I can see that because I have a gaming headset too. Same thing. It's comfortable. It's great.
yeah.
I look silly.
So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that this year and see how it compares to last year.
Okay.
Can you write off computer equipment?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, anything you can write off a lot of stuff.
And that's another downside to iProfessional. They don't let you write off as much as you should be allowed to write off. If you buy a 12-pack of Cokes that you keep in your office, that 12-pack of Cokes is tax deductible. iProfessional says, oh, that's groceries that you're obviously using for your house. That's not tax deductible. If you have internet and cable television on the same bill, the IRS says that's tax deductible because it's a business expense. The internet part is a business expense. And iProfessional makes you itemize it and split it out.
Yeah. Yeah, normally if you have your own company, you can, the way that it's recommended that you set it up, like if you're running your own company, is you expense pretty much everything. Anything that can likely have anything to do with the business, you expense, and then you just pay yourself as little as you possibly can. That's kind of a more standard setup. So you pay yourself a very, very small nominal wage, and then you're like expensing lunches, dinners, freaking everything. That being said, in Louisiana, and in a lot of states, there's actually other programs that you can take advantage of if you have your business. So like I'm in the Louisiana digital incentive program, and it actually makes more sense for me to go the other direction, pay myself as much as possible because I can get state credits for all of it.
Such bullshit. I can't believe in a state as broke as ours, We're like, tell them a little bit about this digital incentive program that.
Yeah, the program it's specifically meant to incentivize digital business like businesses that work in tech to come and work in Louisiana. It's a horribly written law because they just took a similar law for the film industry, copy pasted and just like search replaced everything. It's just very, very poorly written, but it is well intended and it does do a lot. Basically, you can get, well, until last summer, it was 35% of your payroll back as a state tax credit and 25% of any other expenses. Well, 35% of my payroll, so basically that can be almost another 35% added to my salary.
Wow.
So that's given as a state, and the state will actually, these are exchangeable tax credits. So so I can give them to someone else. So after I wipe out my state taxes entirely, I can then take those tax credits and apply them toward and can sell them to someone else because they're transferable. So that's a hassle for the state. So they actually have a buyback program, so you don't have to do that. So they just will buy back. So it's like 90% of the 35% I end up getting back, and it's pretty awesome. It's been getting a little weird lately. The state, so like our state is just freaking broke, and they're really penny pinching on this, but it's a very unevenly administered program. But I mean, like it is actually exactly like it has achieved a lot of its goals. It's just not one of the big things that is advertised very much outside of a very specific slice of the industry. Yeah, it's a cool program. So I think like there are plenty of states that have similar programs. So, I would check with your state to see if there's something like that, if there's some sort of tax credits like that, get a badass accountant that doesn't mind dealing with state bureaucracies.
So essentially, if you're running a two-person shop and you aren't making more than you would expect, you're getting ripped off because the state of Louisiana is writing your boss a check or your partner a check for about 35% of payroll plus 25%.
If they file for it, a lot of companies haven't been filing for it. And actually, I was one of the first people in the state to file for it because when it came around, it was one of those things that really, you guys? I mean, the guy that administered the program, I stood in the same room as him, and he was like, yes, you're exactly the sort of person we are trying to get in this program. So I'm, very sure that it's as intended. But,
yeah.
But companies that are paying and taking advantage of it should totally pass the saving and pass it down to their employees. That's lame if they don't.
Totally. So come to Louisiana, guys.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the exact point of this program. Also, it's been lowered to 25%.
Yeah, you can get there, and then they're gonna be like, "Psych."
Well, that is how it works, right? It's meant to you put down roots, you establish infrastructure, and then they remove it.
The bait and switch.
Mm-hmm.
But that worked for, and that's how they get the film industry here and stuff like that.
So what shows are going to be in New Orleans? Because we have Walking Dead in Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, the film industry here is leaving. It's one of the problems with these programs. This one specifically, I think, is better than the film industry because the tech industry doesn't have it as nearly as bad a track record as just taking a bunch of money, tax credits, i.e. free money from states to move there, and then just leaving. The film industry has done this to a number of different states, and so they're moving to Atlanta. And so there's about 2 productions here right now, but pretty much everything is moving to Atlanta. And so if there's a reason that this program gets cut back, it would really just be because of the bad behavior of the film industry, and not because tech companies are much more sticky than the film industry. The film industry here is, I mean.
That being said, a lot of the people did settle here, did take roots, and are paying like.
I mean, most of the film people I know who are still working in film have left already.
Well. Anyway, but there used to be a ton of production all the time.
I know, when the money was flowing.
So I think I saw something where now it's sort of making more sense why they're complaining. I was like, this is an odd complaint. But it was like some article complaining actually about is that with the newish movie, I think it's out on DVD or whatever now, but Will Ferrell and Marky Mark, and about like a stepdad or whatever, and like it takes place in New Orleans, but it's like not filmed in New Orleans, and like people were complaining about it. They're like, seriously? Or like they maybe they filmed, but it was like so you couldn't tell, like it was so suburbia that they're like, why would you do this? like if you're filming in New Orleans, like film in New Orleans. But I was like, this felt like a weird complaint. But now I can see there's some tensions going on over there.
Yeah.
See where they're coming from.
Cool. So, I'm sorry, we kind of interrupted your thing, Joe. Did you have more stuff you want to cover?
No, that was pretty much it. Yeah, so like I say, the real swing vote there for me was just the recovery and going after people who are trying to stiff me, and that's only really happened once. But back in 2007, 2008, my dad and I had a client stiff us for over $10,000, and I don't want to be in that position again.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things, like that. One of the, like, if someone's getting the freelance, I think the thing I would highlight them to would be it's from a meetup like years ago, but the title of the talk is "Here we go, prepare," is like, fuck you, pay me. That's what.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good talk because it's going to happen, and I think the problem is that some of us as developers as a whole, I think we are very nice people. And a lot of times with freelance in particular, someone has a problem, we're trying to help them with their problem. And so we come in from an altruistic standpoint, and we do not recognize, and someone might seem like they're nice and good, but like it quickly, it will, inevitably there will be issues that will pop up later, and like you're going to need contracts for that stuff. And it isn't just like, okay, well, if you're a good person, do a good job, you're not going to be a problem. It's like, trust me, it happens. It just happens. Like you need to have that there because it's a business relationship, and that's where I think the iProfessional allows you to come in, is that they can sort of be the bad guys if you want them to be the bad guys, and when you're like someone, because also from my perspective as a person, you think, hey, if I hired someone to do this work and they did the work and I owe them money, I would pay them, but other people don't work that way for some reason. I guess I wonder if they go like to Best Buy, buy a bunch of stuff, and then go, I just won't pay him.
Yeah. Donald Trump, his strategy was to negotiate the best price and then pay them 75%. So he's just basically left this trail of unpaid contractors in his wake. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. That was an article in the New York Times last week.
Yeah. So I did kind of want to ask, where are you guys getting freelance work from? Because I've had people ask me, and they're like, yeah, or like a lot of boot camp graduates and so on, trying to get into freelance work. And they'll ask me like, well, where can I get freelance work? And I actually don't know what to tell them. I don't know.
100% of mine has been from non-freelance sites or whatever. I think actually I've had a couple come from mail lists in terms of like I was on the mail list, and I guess they just sent emails out to everybody. But most of the time it's by word of mouth. But then it's kind of hard. Like I'd be like, okay, if you just graduated from boot camp. Because I know someone goes this year, like, I want to enter freelance, and I'm like, I guess I'm confused. I'm like, you just started to learn, like, don't you?
Well, yeah, but so what? It's not like they can't be freelance.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's not like they're
I'm not saying
misrepresenting themselves.
Yeah.
But so y'all haven't tried like any of those websites like Desk or anything like that?
I've tried a couple of those, and I find myself being outbid by overseas or young or brand new people so badly that I can't make a living wage off of those sites.
Hmm.
I get guys through CodeMentor.io. Any of y'all use that?
Mm-mm. Code better.
Yeah, Code Mentor. Code
Mentor.
CodeMentor.io.
No, what's that about?
So,
What is it again?
CodeMentor.io. I've hired a bunch of guys off of there. It's actually pretty good because the rates. I've paid anywhere from as low as 30 an hour to as much as 100 an hour, depending on who I'm hiring on there. And they got the guys on there that are 5 and 8 and 15 an hour, but as a buyer of freelance services, you kind of weed through those guys just based on how they're set up on the site. But if y'all are looking for freelance work, it's not a bad place to hang your hat.
Cool. And then we've got a couple in the Q&A asking about Hired.com or the other guys. Does anyone have any thoughts on those?
Hired. I have not used any Hired.
Is that the one that bought out Odesk?
No clue, you guys.
I don't know. There was one that bought out Odesk, and neither one of them was any good, I thought. But, again, that's just me.
So was it Gun.io? I've applied a couple times for stuff, but honestly, it's like sending emails into the black hole. From my concern, I have never gotten a response back, even to say no, we're not interested. So that is it for remote work. I know some better places.
What was it? What are some of the
For remote work, Authentic Jobs has been pretty good.
Authentic?
Yeah, Authentic Jobs. Then what was, I think it's like We Work Remote. I'm looking here. Yeah, We Work Remotely. Both those are thumbs up.
Can you throw those in the Slack channel?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Here, let me share the pages here, so people can see that, and then I will do that. Share. Where are you? This is a fun game when you have too many windows open. There we go. We Work Remotely and Authentic Jobs. I'll put that in Slack.
Authentic job. Oh yeah.
I've had good job offerings and responses from there. Particularly, We Work Remotely. I think it's great because a lot of times people say they want remote people, and it's sort of not, and they really want you to move. And in particular, a lot of times they're like, "Move to California." And like, no, because the salary that you just offered in California would not work for me.
Also, moving to California. Ugh. But I guess you're in Texas. So.
Texas rules. But yeah, there you go.
Cool. All right.
Trying to think. So, the other one was Gun.io. But like I said, they put up little projects and then I send responses, and a lot of times it's I'm even on the fence on those. I'm like, okay, I don't know, and I don't even get a response back. So I think they're looking for Gun.io seems more like project based, and I think what Joe mentioned is probably what's happening is they're really looking for a low bid. And yeah,
I actually had a guy cuss me out for bidding too high, and I was like, I'm sorry, you don't have to accept my bid.
yeah, yeah.
Jeez, yeah. Cool.
And I'll share the so Code Mentor. I would love to see someone who does code mentor to see because I basically do code mentor, but I don't get paid to do code mentor. So maybe I can convert what I normally do. And
How do you do code mentor but not get paid?
I don't do code mentor. I mean, I help people one on one.
How do you get free help one-on-one?
Just ask me, and I generally do it.
So it's another word of mouth thing.
Yeah, I'd just be like, hey, I need help doing this. I know you do this. What do you want to work together? Like, yeah. After brown bag it, I have a meeting at 2 where I'm helping someone scope a project out. So yeah, that's just.
Oh.
And then, all right, we have another site. Is Remote OKIO. I have not used or seen this one, so I think take a look at that too. That's one of the things. Joe, you've been working on remote for a while, right?
Yeah, 3 years now.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point. Do you have? I forgot. Did you have kids?
Yeah, we've got a 13-year-old.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the thing too. I can't. I call it the play school handcuffs or whatever. It's not a golden handcuff, but it's anything where you think you're going to go in and work. You're the time you'd be missing away from home with the family. There's a dollar sign associated with that, and all the time you'd have with your commute. I think I would probably do the commute and work someplace if I had an automatic car, because then I could do things while I'm on the road.
Well, and
could
bill for that time.
If I had an hour, 3 hours every day in the car where no one could bother me, and I could just blog or code on whatever I want.
Wow. So by the time you got to work, though, it would be time to go home.
No, because you have to that's what your work day is actually longer, because they don't pay you for being in the car. That's the other thing. If they paid me for being in the car, then that wouldn't be a problem, because then I could just work my 8 hours, 3 hours of which would be on the road. All right, George. So what else? I know we had some other stuff to talk about. Joe, thank you for sharing, by the way.
You're very welcome.
I had a couple other things I could bring up. One of which I just recently. So I had a conversation maybe 4 months ago with a security guy who mentioned, we were talking about passwords and how you should always hash and solve passwords before you should hash and solve passwords, before you store them, which I think as developers we all know. I don't know if anyone needs to. Should we go over that?
How to salt password and hash
No, or
passwords?
why?
No, I think it's your idea.
I think we're good.
Usually store the salt somewhere else, right?
It's not a big deal. You can store it in the record. I actually have never found a reason. I still am looking for a reason why you can't just use the username as a salt, because it seems like you can. Really, all it does is make it, having a salt doesn't make it difficult to decrypt the password. It makes it difficult to mass decrypt all the passwords. That's my understanding of how the math works out there. So I never quite understood. I think you can just use the username, just append the username to the thing and just salt it. But I'm not. I don't take my word for that. But the interesting thing that this guy was saying is that you actually need to be hashing and salting on the client before you send it off to the server. And he said that I didn't get a chance to question it. I've been spending 4 months questioning what possible difference could that make? Until I figured it out yesterday, and I do kind of want to talk about it a little bit, because nobody does that. Nobody hashes the password, in their login form and then sends it. And in fact, it seemed, I was thinking, how does that, because if your server gets a password that you can run and it unlocks, well, then it's just a password. You don't care whether it's hashed or not. So what it's for, and this is the way I realized what happened is I was typing my Bitbucket password and I accidentally typed in my MSDN password. Well, heck, now I just sent Bitbucket my MSDN password.
Oh. Good job.
And Bitbucket doesn't want my MSDN password, does it? Like, it doesn't want it. In fact, that could be a big liability, right? Like, if someone, is working a government job, has a bunch of has a bunch of classified information in their clipboard, pastes it in by accident, now the service has to prove that it's not in a log file somewhere, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, especially if they're logging it out.
Right. So that's the trick. That's the trick. It's not just hash and salt your password on the client. It's hash and salt your password both on the client and on the server. And that way, so basically two sets of hashing. That way, when it's in transit, it's not in the state that you initially that you typed in. So if it's logged, or someone has a cracked HTTPS, which is crazy, but it happens, or just when the service is receiving it, they don't have access to the password that you set.
Yeah, I think it's about the man-in-the-middle attacks.
Yeah, and then that led me down the rabbit hole of looking at, because the only way you realistically are going to be man-middling something like that is if you can crack someone's HTTPS. So then I was like, well, the only way to really crack HTTPS is one of the big ways would be to use a bad certificate, and then I looked up how does certificate revocation works, and apparently it doesn't. It barely works. So there's two possible ways that HTTPS certificates are supposed to get revoked. So, for example, if your certificate got cracked or it got leaked something or something happened, one of which is that there is a master list that's published every 6 months or so, which is here's all the certificates that have been revoked. And then another one is that certificates themselves are supposed to provide, I think, a URL or something like that, by which to check whether they're valid. Mm-hmm. And many browsers don't even follow that URL. Some browsers follow that URL, but the format returned isn't standard, so they can't decode it. A ton of browsers don't cache the big file that gets sent around every however many months appropriately, so it ends up getting kept around for much, much longer. So it is a real big mess there, and kind of a big flaw in SSL, which was just interesting to read about. So that article was how SSL certificate revocation doesn't work. I can put that in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. It's on. Let me put that in there. That was good stuff.
Do I have time to talk about my app?
Yeah, we got about 15
minutes.
Why don't we give it to you? I can talk about SVG later.
Yeah.
Next week.
Oh, okay.
If only we had another meeting coming up next week. But wait, we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Ryan's penciled in. But he's not going to be talking the entire time.
Yeah. Seth, you want to talk? Go for it.
Yeah. I'll just do it very quickly. I'm sharing. Can you see my cursor moving around?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry. So I decided to build my first sort of React Redux app. I thought it would be fun. I had an idea for something. I think some of the hardest things I found is in learning how to program is actually finding a thing to build that is in your skill set and will just difficult enough that you learn something, right? Of course, the next best way is or the best way is to have them or whatever. Not everybody has that luxury. And so I was like, well, I think it would be cool to create a timer app in Redux. Part of I think the difficulty was because just first of all, the use of an interval is not inherently functional, right? It's not predictability based on time. I guess you can argue that it's functional, but it's not it's really hard to imagine. I think that would be like a philosophical debate, like whether an interval can be purely functional. And so this is it. And basically, so here's how the application works. You start with a root component. All this stuff is passed down. And so basically, this was a learning experience for me because I started in vanilla React, and then I noticed like basically doing things like summing up like the total of all the timers so you can get a nice juicy total at the top. That wasn't trivial to do. You sort of introduced, I think, a little bit of the problems with object-oriented programming kind of on a micro scale. And so I was like, well, I read about the flux pattern and refactored, and so I learned a ton about just writing ES6 here, but I'm still having trouble with the this keyword in React. So like there's moments when I have to use bind and it's very ugly.
This keyword.
Yeah. And so I really think the cool thing about Redux is that it looks really like an over-engineered, really complicated solution, but when you follow the app, it has this kind of nice logical flow. So you have a root component, and then on that root component, you declare your container components, and then each one of these container components has presentational components on it, and those presentational components are and they hide basically all of the CSS and all the weirdness, so you basically get like a bunch of juicy or sort of render logic is all kind of in one place. Which I think maybe ideally you would have as few container components as possible, so even if it was a huge file, right, at least you didn't have to go looking everywhere for all your business logic, or your render logic would be in one place. And I ended up realizing, like, my render logic started getting really hairy, where I was having to send an action, dispatching an action at a certain interval. I'll just show you this. So basically, every second, this timer decrements, right? And I think the vanilla React way would be to actually set the whole interval on the render, or the Redux way would be to set the interval on the main component, and so you basically have this main component that, so previously, instead of it being in what I used, which was like a thunk function, I had it all on this one countdown right here, countdown component. So basically you would click it, and then so I had all of this code right here, like, and it was a nightmare to test, and I was just, really struggling. And then I started, I listened to you guys talk about functional testing, and I was like, oh, well, I read a lot about how easy it is to do functional testing here, and so I wrote a bunch of functional tests, right, like based on your example, specifically Rookie One, and it was very, very useful. I still had trouble actually getting the actual render logic, kind of end-to-end testing, because there's this weird like hybrid functional GUI testing where it basically opens up a mock browser and then it clicks a button, and so you can, and then it says, well, if this button is clicked, there should be this element here, and so it's kind of like Selenium, but you don't even get the hint of a browser, and so all my tests are right here. So these underscore tests are tests for private methods, and then you've got set time, start ticking, and this test basically was a little hairy because I basically had to wait a certain amount of time to see, because essentially what these timers do is they cascade. So basically you do 3, 2, 1, and then this timer should start, and then this timer should start, right? And so I think it's cool to create intervals and then be able to like drag them around, mix it up based on what your workflow is. And yeah, that's it. It was really cool to finally just basically put all the render logic in this thunk function, and so got to use middleware. And so I don't know. It's cool to write code where everything seems to sort of fit like a little puzzle piece in a predictable way. And also, when you're starting to add new features, it's pretty simple, right? Like you would think, oh well, I would probably start with an action, you know.
Is there a reason you have your my interval being global?
Because it's grabbing. Well, actually, that might be a relic. I might be able to remove that. Because previously, it was grabbing it from this other part of the code. And so I was like, well, just having this one global, but...
Yeah, you should be able to just scope it to your start tracking function. Or even to that function in line 14.
Yeah, because I actually, the myInt isn't being called anywhere else. Actually, it's being called inside of this other. So I don't. It doesn't have actually. It needs to be maybe not the window object, but it needs to be some kind of global because it's scoped. Because there's another function. This function wouldn't have access to this scope if I didn't have the window object there. And you know, one of the benefits of using action creators this way is that you don't have to mess with your reducer logic too much. You can keep your reducer pure, and your actions can have things where basically it grabs all this stuff. This API grabs makes a query to some kind of REST API, grabs a bunch of data. You can populate your store with it. And so right now, what I'm trying to figure out is using like an elegant way to use local storage. So basically, when I refresh, all the stuff goes away. I would like to be able to use local storage and have it save my current state. And so right now, I have it right in here in this. In this app. Yeah, where basically what it's doing, I created these helper utility methods called store state and local storage. And again, using the this keyword is frustrating because you're like, why doesn't it say expected listener to be a function? It's like, oh, I need to like add this this keyword. So that's about it.
Yeah, when I was doing the local storage stuff, I did it actually in my reducers, but that might be a little bit better what you did.
I read somewhere that I shouldn't be doing, like, that was where I thought logically, and then someone was like, well, actually, your reducers are supposed to be pure, even though the reducer seems to make sense, because, oh, it's something that gets called after every action.
Right.
But no. Someone on Stack Exchange was like, no, you...
Yeah, this feels like this is a better solution. But, yeah.
Any questions?
I did notice
version 2.0, and I got to use Firebase app, which I thought I was like, I'll use a database, and then I was thinking, oh, you know what is easier than a database? Local storage. And Firebase was really easy, and you get to type in cool commands like Firebase deploy. It's free, by the way, so you can. I mean, if I wanted a custom URL, I'd have to pay, but basically, I get this like super slick, like no SQL database for just like little sample apps. Super easy to integrate. It's got like an NPM package, and so if I did want to add a database, I was thinking like OAuth or something. It would be so. I can't think of anything easier than using Firebase.
So when you do it, how are you making sure that each person who uses your application has their own? Like, do all of them share their timers, or you actually have a user per Firebase instance or something?
Oh no. Well, right now it's all done client side, and so even though it says Firebase app, there's all the code is client side.
Oh, it's storing everything client.
Yeah, it's storing everything client side. But if I was to actually use the like Firebase is a very slick like database.
Sure. Yeah.
I can show it to you guys. But then, it would all be stored. So you could, rather than trying to create somewhere host a node instance or something like that, Firebase will do pretty much all that heavy lifting for you, and which I think is good. But I've still been looking for an excuse to use Node in an application. It's actually harder than I would think, right? Like, or that one would think. Like, there's so many ways you don't actually have to use Node. I mean, like there's even though it gets a lot of play, we use npm all the time. Like for chat apps or like apps where you have to manage a bunch of state and keep a bunch of clients in sync. But I mean,
So you were asking about suggestions. So the store state in ls thing, you wrote that yourself, or is that a library?
Yeah, I wrote that myself. That's just because there's all these libraries, and so basically what it does is it checks if it's an object, right, and then converts it to a string because for whatever reason, because stupid local storage only supports plain string.
So hold on. So
And then
go back to the previous file. Where you were finding this?
Yeah.
Because I don't see a reference to it inside of your store ls. Yeah, you shouldn't have to do that bind of this.
I know it doesn't seem to. Okay,
Well, what exactly were you doing?
Okay, and I think it has something to do with this get state function, right?
Okay. So can you show me what you were doing? I can explain why I was doing it.
Okay. And so previously I just had it in store ls store get state.
Oh, okay. So that's it. Because that's not what you want. Store.subscribe takes in a function. You're passing in whatever store state in ls returns, which is undefined.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right.
Put that entire thing in a lambda, and you're good to go. Inside of the subscribe, put open close parens arrow to the right of the first parens. Yeah.
Like that.
Yep. There you go. Yeah, because bind creates a new function.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see.
So you didn't actually need to bind this to it at all because you're not using this inside the store state.
Yeah.
So you could have the first parameter into bind could have been null, or it could have been my name is Seth. It doesn't matter because it was getting ignored anyway.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know. This is the beauty of lambdas in ES6.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not so much about lambdas, it's just remembering that, being
able to put it all on one line.
Yeah. You could still put it all in one line.
Oh yeah, but a function keyword and then a return keyword?
Well, you wouldn't need it, though, because you don't need a return in this case.
You would still need to return this.
Nope, because store state in ls returns undefined anyway. Right? You don't care what that returns, what that function returns. So you could absolutely do function keyword open brace, and you wouldn't need a return keyword because the thing that it returns doesn't matter. It doesn't return anything.
Right, all I'm doing is invoking.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah,
one of the cool things about ES6 is just like basically being able to write all of this stuff on one line. I wrote this originally in ES 2015, and it was just like so much longer, and then very satisfying to refactor it using arrow functions and just to be able to just put all. I think George talked about vertical density as being something valued when you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the things that I might point out too is because I noticed earlier when you had to create class, you might want to look into some React stateless functions. So I noticed you had to create class where it had only a render method.
So I have stuff like that, right? But then I also
Okay.
on my smart components, I'm using this because there's moments when I'm actually thinking, and I'm still waiting for an excuse to use a component lifecycle method better. So like I'm trying to figure out a better way to use animation, but right now, as you can see, the animation isn't working, and there's these stupid wrappers. It's like a native React thing. It's basically a component wrapper that watches your, and maybe that's the easiest way to use basically a component wrapper like inside of your return function that watches, and if a component is mounted or removed, it will do something. It'll intercept it, but right now I'm having trouble. I thought, can't I just use component will unmount, but it's gone by the time that, like, it doesn't have time to apply this class name.
Like, so what I would do there, actually, see, that might not be, so I wouldn't use something like refs, for example. There's several things you could do. First of all, the easiest probably would be just to make the, will remove soon or something like a part of your application state that gets compiled over your reducer and actually gets passed down through the props. I mean, that's so then this renders one when it's about to remove soon, which will add that class, and then the other one, and then later. But I mean, if all you want is right. So the animation, it could be a matter of adding that class which will animate it, and then in 10 milliseconds or however, half a second, something ticks and puts a new action on the queue, which is like removal completed, and then the actual timer is removed. So that would probably be the most straightforward way to do something like that.
Yeah, I thought about having it just passing it down through my through the tree.
Yeah.
And that would probably be the easiest. I know that there's a lot of, I found React DOM.find DOM node I had some issues with this, and I don't think it's good to use it very much. It's like it's kind of a shortcut.
Both find DOM node and refs are hacks.
Yeah, and refs as a hacky thing. And so, but like, I'm also wary of I just don't like the idea of storing a prop that's just for the purpose of animation. Like, it just. So
the other thing you could do for that is you could basically wrap a component. Well, basically, so what you could do is, let's say you're doing that here, then this component would have to figure out that, hey, I'm going to be removed. And then store that in the state. Rather than the props. And then it's limited just to this component. And in fact, you could make that generic and just a generic thing that you can kind of wrap any component in.
Yeah, I think that's probably how the React. It's a React thing called React CSS Transition Group. Which is maybe that is the most straightforward way. Because it would be able to monitor its children for changes.
Yep. All right. I think we are at the hour, guys.
Yeah. It was a good day. Covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of good things. Took notes. Everything's good. We have Ryan should be coming next week. It depends on when his baby girl's born. But he'll be talking TypeScript, and so we can dive into that. And then I'm sure the word monads will come up in F# will conversation, because that's just Ryan. Yeah, but thanks everybody for coming today and sharing and talking. It was a good day.
Cool. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.